going to go in segment 3, and Phoebe is going to take us in.
So we're now going to be talking about hate crime. So this is not my hate of crime. This is the crimes motivated by hate towards individuals. So this is an Al Jazeera article based on the UK government official statistics. And it has shown a marked increase in the number of individuals who are either Muslims or Jews who are experiencing hate crimes. So whilst hate crimes themselves have gone up, 26% of these have disproportionately affected these two religious groups. And what strikes me, particularly with the segment we had earlier, is that just how small a population these are. So it's a very disproportionate increase, and the article clearly reflects that. So it's a very interesting way of actually looking at things as we go through just how a minority within a religious group is actually disproportionately affected by hate crimes in this country. And yeah, it's a very worrying trend as somebody who is ethnically Jewish but is not religiously Jewish and has been a victim of anti-Semitism myself. So Richard Gilliver, what have you got to say on this?
Well, I have got very thrown off. Just bear with me a second. You know what? I actually want your perspective on religious hate crime, because as you've said yourself, you have been the victim of hate crime, and I just wanted you to give us kind of an indication of what that feels like, because I'm sure many of our viewers, and certainly I, have never been the victim of hate crime. And, you know, just tell us a little bit about what that feels like when that happens to you.
It's an experience that you are no longer seen as a human. You're not actually seen as another human. You are boiled down to your individual characteristic. And I mean, I may be ethnically Jewish, and I get very annoyed sometimes when I see what is clearly an ethnically related crime classified as a religious crime, because you have, in the census itself, it explicitly says that Sikhs and Jews are ethnic groups as well as religious groups. So there needs some conflation of the two, which does quite annoy me. But there is a dehumanization when you are attacked simply for existing. And I mean, I've been attacked for two characteristics. And it is really quite dehumanizing and degrading. And it is really horrendous to have not just you attacked because they don't like you, but they have a genuine set of beliefs about you just because you happen to have a certain characteristic. And I mean, there were anti-Semitic slurs thrown at me, and I mean, I was physically attacked, and it was not a very nice experience at all. Simply because I was in the wrong part of the wrong place at the wrong time, just existing and having a lot of extras thrown at me. And I mean, yeah, it's just quite demoralizing as well, because you also feel excluded from society when it's actually happening to you, because you don't feel as if that you actually belong almost. And yeah, it's just awful.
That's got to be so difficult to go through. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you,
Richard. What are your thoughts?
It is awful. I mean, there's a couple of thoughts. I mean, the whole process of it is frustrating, and it's something it's amongst my studies. I mean, my main research until recently has been on emotions that are similar to or the same as disgust, and that is one of the what's known as a othering emotion, because what will often happen is, for whatever reason, people will be convinced that this group here is in some way untouchable or disgusting or whatever. And that's how they will dehumanize. That's how classically other people have dehumanized groups so they can commit awful atrocities to them. And it's terrible. And what really frustrates me at the moment is really, it'd be really nice if we could have a system where people would say, let's stop doing that. Let's not point at one group and dehumanize them because that's not terrible. Unfortunately, all politics on all sides of recent years has been about the opposite of that. It's been about how do we get people to like us? Let's say they're bad, so these people agree with the vote. And it's frustrating because that's not where we should be in 2022. It really isn't. We should be somewhere else. We should be saying, oh, those stats are terrible. Let's stop doing that. Let's educate people. Let's teach people that this is the wrong way to be. Let's get them together and talk. Let's realize that we're all humans. But that's kind of not what really happens. It's just, it annoys me that these stats are there because they shouldn't be. When I was growing up as a lad in Sheffield in the 80s, I thought that by now we'd be past this crap, but we're not. And that's really
still
depressing.
Pandering to our friendly neighbourhood fascists. I mean, it's still going on. I mean, that's what politicians are guilty of. They are guilty of pandering to your friendly neighbourhood fascist who's going to put a mark on the ballot paper. And that's all a lot of politicians seem to be doing, particularly in this country.
Yeah, we do have that insidious. I don't know if it's still a politician, ex-politician certainly, Mr. Farage,
Never a politician.
who was in our is a he had, he is responsible, and his ilk are responsible for so much hatred being spread in this country. Absolutely unnecessarily. Emma.
Well, it's interesting you bring up Farage because I was just talking about him today because he was spreading misinformation about the census results that we've been talking about. Part of his, his complaints that the UK is becoming less white and less white British, and that is damaging to our culture in some way. So yeah, it's a large problem. I think the most depressing thing for me is that I read the article and looked at the statistics and was like, yeah. It's not. Is anyone surprised? It's just not surprising that this hate crime continues to rise. And I know a little bit more just because of sort of researching and talking to people about Islamophobia, particularly, which per British history in the classic way is basically just a minor extension of just racism. And there's a lot of interesting discussion in the ex-Muslim community over whether it should be called Islamophobia or what should be identified as racism. And I guess Phoebe touched on the sort of ethnic versus religious hate crime earlier. But it's been rife for a hot minute. There's a couple of Labour MPs that I follow. Zara Sultana started sharing last year the abusive emails that she got. There's a lot of there's a couple of female Muslim MPs, and there seems to be a lot of misogyny, interestingly, packed into Islamophobia. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, I see somebody on the internet tell him to go home about once every day, and he's from South London, so I don't know where he's supposed to go.
Not very far for him to go.
No.
The wrong side of London, but that's a conversation for another day. I had a conversation a while back with an ex-Muslim, atheist activist, Secular Spirit, and we kind of talked about Islamophobia and criticizing Islam, and the conclusion that I've come to from reading and watching videos and things about this sort of topic, this kind of brand of hate, is that it's got more far-reaching effects even than just the people that are targeted. It makes it harder, say Islamophobia makes it harder for former Muslims to speak out. It provides an excuse for your everyday bigot to attack just immigrants and be openly racist. And my issue, I think my sort of core issue, is something that again Phoebe sort of touched on, is this kind of exponential rise in far right and alt-right ideas that we just, and by we I mean sort of the mainstream media and politics, we just accept because those people do also tick boxes and vote and things like that. Out and out hate groups are on the rise. white nationalism is perking up again. Like I talked about Nigel Farage talking about how white people are a minority in all these cities, which isn't true anyway, but also who actually cares.
What difference does it make even if they are?
There was an MP
Literally,
who
who
jumped in,
cares?
and there was an MP called Sajid Javid who jumped in and said, "And so what?"
Yeah.
Which should be the correct response to that statement in every
But
case.
the problem is that those groups and those personalities, those far right kind of personalities, have been using the Muslims are taking over or whatever as a talking point for so long that they need it. And hate speech continues to flourish in this country because it continues to be platformed by mainstream media. Our biggest news sources, the ones that are supposed to be the most, unbiased and non-partisan, like the BBC, will continue to platform bigots who spread hate speech and misinformation to push their agenda as if they have a valid position and deserve a platform to be heard, and they just don't. And I don't think things are going to change until that changes. Phoebe, fire away.
This is incredible to hear because the numbers are so small. There are only 13 million Jews at the last count worldwide. Yet, if you believe that, Jews run the world, according to the conspiracy people. And the number of people who are identifying as Muslims in this country is only in the couple of millions here. It's not an enormous number of people. And to say that they are a threat to the status quo, well, in 150 generations' time, maybe. But what we're seeing here is we're seeing people who are scared that they may lose their power in some way, shape, or form, or it's being threatened. So they've got to make up some absolute nonsense that I don't even want to go and give them any dignity by repeating them here. But it is just trope after trope after trope to do one thing, and one thing above all else: entrench their own position and stop other people from being under their thumb. And that's what we need to recognize here. It's not human to go around attacking other people. It's to retain the power for themselves. And yeah, I haven't heard much from Mr. Gilliver. Say some more, please.
Oh, I'm going to say something. I'm going to have a little rant myself on this. The article said that, well, it suggested, should I say, that some of these hate crimes were reactionary to events caused by certain groups, and I want to go into that a little bit because I had a Muslim friend after the 7th of July London bombings, and where anti-Muslim sentiment was really, really high. And he was reading something on a tram in Sheffield, and it was just something in Arabic, just something generic. And a member of the public saw him and actually called the police because they thought he was reading a bomb-making manual. Yes, this is the mentality of these people. Of course, it was released without charge. But that incident genuinely traumatized him for a long, long time. And after Lee Rigby was murdered in 2013, an Indian, I want to point that out, fucking Indian restaurant near my house was actually firebombed in a revenge attack. They're not even Muslim. Not even the same fucking religion. But the attackers don't seem to understand the difference. This is the mentality. And as the people on this show know, I love a good opportunity to get on my soapbox about education. And this seems a good time as any. Don't commit hate crimes. Don't attack people for being different. If a set of religious idiots commit an horrendous attack, don't vindicate them by attacking innocent people in response. The way to defend against terror attacks is not to go and hurt people. It is to educate people. And I have been in situations where I've been sat amongst young Muslim men reinforcing not me, I'll just point this out, but they are reinforcing that the West is the enemy. And do you know what examples they use? They use the two I gave above. The revenge attacks, the hate crimes inform justification for further terrorism. Bad education becomes a vicious circle all around. Like I said, I've sat with those Muslim men. I've tried to explain the actions of people committing hate crimes aren't the opinions of people in the West in general. But it's an exceptionally difficult argument to defend because they see it and they witness it. And that informs the next 7/7 attacker or the next murder of a British soldier. You know, and yeah, I'm the first person, I will stand on the soapbox. I'm the first person who will say that Islam should be criticized. It should be challenged. It should be argued against, but it should be done in such a way that educates and doesn't create hate. And let's not use religion, race, sexuality, or gender as targets of hate. In fact, let's not hate people at all. Let's talk to people, educate people, and live alongside people, regardless of whether we agree with them or not. Mr. Firth-Godbehere.
Yeah, guess who was living in Woolwich in 2013? I was in Woolwich when Lee Rigby was attacked. I was in Woolwich when a bunch of knuckleheads turned up to smash the town up, because to them, the entire town of Woolwich was responsible for the death, despite the fact it's about 65% Afro-Caribbean and Christian, mostly sort of fundamentalist Christian. But they didn't care. It was the place that did it. This is how dumb this is. It was the town that killed Lee Rigby. So let's smash all the shops up. That was fun. Yeah, I stayed home that day. I could hear it though, hear the ambulances, see the flames. Kind of terrifying. And it's bizarre that people will go to that extreme, that they will see something and they will go, oh, these terrible people, and they don't discriminate. They will go and firebomb an Indian restaurant. They will smash up a Marks and Spencer's, that well-known bastion of Islam in the middle of Woolwich High Street, you know. And it's what are you doing exactly? I
mean, Marks and Spencer is a target of turfdom, but you know.
That's true, yeah. And serfdom. But it's that's a whole other thing. But yeah, and it doesn't surprise me because of the rhetoric, because of certain newspapers, and we all know who they are, and the language they use and the way they say things. And Nigel Farage with his Fisher-Price binoculars stood at the White Cliffs of Dover going, oh, there are too many people coming over the channel. You know, it's just...
Early learning centre, mate.
Yeah. And it's just... And like I say, I'm still frustrated that we still have to do this. And yes, education is important. Education, talking to people, showing examples of people, not talking at people, not lecturing them, not telling them they should be wrong. That we know that doesn't work since the 90s. But getting involved, getting into conversation, making people realize that we're kind of the same deep down. We just have different beliefs here and there, rather than firebombing a place that makes bras for women of a certain age. You know, that's not what you should do.
You've never been in a Marks and Spencer's, have you, mate?
I have. I'll have you know. I'm often going there for
bras for women of a certain age.
Why are you buying bras from Marks and Spencer's, mate? Are you trying to tell us something?
Stand up and you'd know, but I'm not going to.
Okay, come on. Let's rein it in a bit. Let's give our final thoughts. Yes. Richard, as you were speaking, just give your final thoughts.
My final thoughts are that it's not a shock at all that the numbers have gone up. There's something else. There's an elephant in this room that nobody likes to mention, and I won't. Let's just say it begins with bruh, that kind of made things a bit worse a few years back. And I can't see the current political climate getting much better anytime soon, and that's what kind of worries and irritates me.
Yeah, Phoebe.
Me?
Yes, final thoughts.
I just don't want to be a victim of a hate crime again. It's simple as that. Just don't. Because I don't want to be a victim again. It's as simple as that. And I'm going to avoid Marks and Spencer's in Woolwich now.
I was a bit concerned that Richard said women of a certain age. I've had a bra fitted. What age is it meant to be?
Yeah, because I'm going to say this. The bra I'm currently wearing was fitted by somebody from Marks and Spencers, and I'm,
I didn't say what that certain age was, to be fair.
Yeah, no, I just want to hammer in my personal feeling is that the British media has a lot to answer for in terms of platforming people who perpetuate, the hatred that causes hate crime. That's my big thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a hard one. I think that was a hard kind of story to go through. I would just want to thank Phoebe again for sharing your story with us, and I'll put you on the spot a little bit with that. I do appreciate it. I think it's important to get that out there and to get the first person perspective of what this really, really does to people.